After my song was cut short at karaoke, I found myself back at the song selection machine. I just had to wait for 28 more songs until it would finally be my turn again. The next song was called The Answer. My boyfriend, John Aldama, and my best friend, Selena Summers, gave each other a look of mild disdain but decided to sing the duet to prevent an awkward silence. Their voices, one cool and one sweet, complemented each other perfectly. Ever since high school, they'd been neck and neck on the honor roll, always vying for first and second place. Even after joining a top-tier company, they'd constantly bicker over projects. Even years after graduation, the people in our high school group chat were still shipping their love-hate dynamic. No matter how hard I tried, I always remained the forgotten third person, an overlooked backdrop. Listening to them sing, I suddenly felt so tired. I no longer felt like singing the song that I had to wait endlessly for. I quietly deleted the song I'd selected and sent a confirmation to the email that asked me to be relocated abroad for work. As we left the karaoke room, Selena smiled and linked her arm through mine. That was fun, wasn't it, Minnie? I pursed my lips and nodded stiffly. Yeah, it was really satisfying. They didn't even notice that I hadn't sung a single song. The microphone was always in John's or Selena's hands. And I, huddled in a shadowy corner, could have fallen asleep and no one would have noticed. After John paid the bill, he caught up to us from behind. He handed us 2 bottles of water. The one with honey went to Selena. Drink some water, or you'll have a completely hoarse voice for tomorrow's presentation. Selena rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Even if I couldn't speak and had to use sign language, I'd still perform better than you. Despite her words, she still took the already opened honey water from him. My bottle was still unopened, and the rough cap dug into my palm. My new high heels were really chafing my feet, so I slowly trailed behind them. I tried a few times, but still couldn't open the bottle. My palm felt sweaty, like a heart bubbling with bitterness. John and Selena walked ahead, side by side, and they started to bicker again. They went back and forth, unaware of my unusual silence. Minnie, John says I'm overreacting by asking for that fanfic in the group chat to be deleted. What do you think? Selena turned around, looking utterly confident. I paused, recalling that fanfic. It was about John and Selena, well written and very detailed. After causing a huge stir in our long-dormant high school group chat, Selena publicly demanded it be deleted. Even if every other man on earth disappears, I still wouldn't fall for John. This is disgusting. Just delete it already. John also replied, his tone indifferent. I agree, delete it. From start to finish, their reasons for deleting it never once involved me. Some clueless classmates even asked me if John and Selena were bickering as a couple. For 5 years, I'd always been the transparent one, overshadowed by their brilliance. I was so invisible that apart from the 3 of us, no one even knew I was John's girlfriend. I kicked a small pebble on the ground and calmly nodded. Yeah, I think you're overreacting too. They're right though. You two would make a great couple. This was the first time in 5 years that I hadn't sided with Selena in an argument. Her smile froze, and the muscles at the corner of her mouth twitched. What's with that attitude, Minnie? You were the one who wanted to go to karaoke. Selena and I specifically adjusted our schedules to come with you, and now you're acting up? Actually, when I said I wanted to go to karaoke, I meant going alone with John. In the 5 years we'd been together, every date for 2 always turned into a trio. This week, as I agonized over whether to take the work assignment overseas, all I wanted was to spend some time alone with John. But when I arrived at the karaoke place, I discovered Selena was there too. She was so pretty. Even though she dressed casually, there were guys hitting on her. John warded off her admirers, and when they questioned who he was, he said, her boyfriend, can't you tell? To prove it, John took Selena's hand. Selena didn't pull away. She just blushed and leaned closer. Recalling that, I blinked my eyes, desperately trying to hold back tears. Today was supposed to be just the 2 of us. Selena heard the tremor in my voice and quickly comforted me. I was worried John would badmouth me in front of you, so I insisted on coming along. It's my fault, don't cry. I won't come along next time. John scolded me with a frown, his tone impatient. Why are you crying? You're acting as if we're bullying you. You throw a tantrum every single time we go out. If you keep this up, I won't go out with you anymore. It's just no fun. I took a deep breath and avoided Selena's hand. Fine, then let's not go out. I also think it's no fun. John froze, his frown deepening. He wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Selena's phone ringing. It was her boss, informing Selena that her proposal had issues and needed major revisions. The presentation is tomorrow. How can I possibly do an entire team's work by myself? Her only reply was the busy tone of a hung-up call. Selena's face went pale, and she bit her lip hard. John pulled out his car keys, grabbed her hand, and led her toward the car park. Selena subconsciously glanced back at me, then quickly pulled her hand away.
Don't worry about me.
You're out on a date with Minnie. You two go have fun.
Consider it my loss this time.
I'll definitely get my revenge next time. John ran a frustrated hand through his hair. I'm not doing this for you. I just don't want to win unfairly. You spent over half a month on your proposal. You can't just give up. Minnie would understand. They both looked at me, waiting for me to give my consent. After all, in the last 5 years, I'd let countless dates fall through and watched them walk away together time and again. My shattered heart still throbbed with lingering pain. I curled my lips and stated calmly, "If I say no, will you stay?" My only answer was their silence. With that, the last bit of unrealistic expectations I had disappeared. Just kidding. Be careful on the road. Minnie opened the passenger seat door with familiarity and slid in. The space was just right for her. When I sat in that seat, I always had to squeeze myself in. John reached over to buckle her seatbelt, but she stopped him with a hand. I pretended not to see and waved them goodbye, suppressing the bitterness in my heart. After John left, I lost all interest in staying out. I pulled out my phone to grab a ride, only to find there were 78 people ahead of me in line. During the 2-hour wait, a sudden thunderstorm broke out. The crowd swarmed to the bus stop to shelter from the rain, anxiously waiting for it to clear. I wish the rain would last longer, just a little longer. That way, I get to stay with you a little longer. I glanced at the speaker. It was a girl who was with a boy. They were, presumably, a young couple. They were probably still in school, their youthful faces beaming with happiness. The girl and boy huddled under the same oversized jacket, just like John and I once did. Back then, he'd always laugh at me for being silly, knowing it would rain but never bringing an umbrella. I'd pout and complain that he wasn't romantic at all. I ordered him to cherish every second he spent with me. I thought that sharing rainy moments together would keep us closer. But the reality was, the rain would always stop and people would always part ways. After I got into my ride, I sneezed. I was drenched from the rain, and the air conditioning in the car was blasting, making me shiver uncontrollably. The driver handed me a towel, but his greasy eyes kept darting around in the rearview mirror. For this date, I'd specially styled my hair and bought a new short skirt. But now, everything was soaking wet and clinging to my body, making me feel terribly uncomfortable. Alarm bells rang in my head, and I immediately dialed my emergency contact. I called 3 times in a row, but John didn't pick up. When I called Selena, however, she picked up almost immediately. Her tone was gentle, and she spoke with a smile. "Minnie, what's wrong?" Just as I was about to speak, I heard John's voice from her end. "Selena, you wouldn't let me answer my phone just now, but now you're the one slacking off. The milk tea I ordered for you is here. It's low calorie, so drink up." Selena playfully chided him for a bit, then whispered to me, complaining, "Your boyfriend is such a nag. He loves to control everything I do. It's so annoying. Only you can put up with him." Okay, I gotta get back to work. I clutched my phone tightly, my knuckles turning white from the tension. By sheer accident, I'd somehow dialed a customer service hotline for the ride-hailing app. As soon as the driver received the platform's warning message, he immediately straightened up. But I didn't dare stay any longer, so I hastily got out of the car. I walked home, and my high heels chafed my heels raw. Blood dripped onto the floor, but I couldn't care less. My vision went black, and I collapsed onto the couch. When John opened the door, he saw me sprawled on the couch. With a frown, he placed a bag of food in front of me. "I brought you supper. Eat them while they're warm." I glanced at them. They were all high-fat, high-sugar foods.
No, thanks.
I don't feel like eating. John rubbed his temples in annoyance. "Why are you upset again? I already texted you and told you not to wait for me. You're the one who chose to wait. Minnie, do you think other people have to be eternally grateful to you for every little thing that you do? I'm human too, and I get tired sometimes. I don't have time to play your little games." I checked my phone. John had indeed sent me a text about coming home late. At the same time, there was also a notification of Selena's new social media post. "There's a power outage at the office, but a fool is here to keep me company, so I'm not scared." The accompanying picture showed John's hand holding a cup of hot coffee next to a computer. I numbly liked it and looked away. Did the proposal revision go well? John's gaze softened instantly.
Yeah.
We haven't collaborated in a while, but Selena and I still work really well together. Although she has a bad temper, she's highly efficient and competent. She truly lives up to being my rival. Work really well together. That was high praise indeed. In all the time John and I had known each other, he had only praised me once. What was the praise again? Oh, right. It was understanding. My eyes were unfocused and drooping. Yeah, you and Selena really are made for each other. John lowered his voice, clearly indifferent. Are you done? Selena and I have known each other for a long time. If anything was going to happen between us, it would have happened already. You wouldn't even get the chance to be with me, so stop saying things like that. It's damaging our relationship. I stopped talking. I stood up unsteadily and slowly made my way to the bedroom. Only then did John notice the bloody blisters on my feet. He quickly scooped me up. Why are you so hot? Do you have a fever? A quick check with the thermometer showed 101. 3 degrees. John hastily gave me fever medicine and applied a wet towel to cool me down. The phone by the bed kept ringing, and I groggily glanced at it. It was a call from a contact saved as an apple emoji. John glanced at my flushed, feverish face, then swiped to answer. Minnie hasn't replied to my texts for 3 hours. Where is she? John told her about my condition, and Selena became more anxious. You don't know how to take care of anyone. I'm coming over right now. I vaguely drifted off to sleep, only to be woken up some time later. John looked worried, and he sounded anxious. Selena sprained her ankle when she went downstairs. I need to go check on her. I'll put your medicine and water here. Take the meds when the alarm rings. I called out to John with a hoarse voice. He glanced at me impatiently, his tone irritable. Selena sprained her ankle because of you. This isn't the time to act up. I suppressed the nausea from my dizziness and calmly reminded him, we have an ointment for sprains. Take it with you. John paused, then grabbed the medicine box and left. As I fell back onto the pillow, I suddenly remembered what John had saved me as in his phone. Minnie Jost, Class 1, Senior Year. We'd been together for 5 years, and that contact name had never changed. Meanwhile, Selena's contact name in John's phone was the simplest, yet also the most unique. As I thought of that, tears inexplicably streamed down my face. Mixed with the sweat from my fever, they blurred my vision and filled my heart with sadness. The closed door was pushed open once more. John had suddenly returned. He picked me up, panting heavily. Selena insisted she wouldn't let me go alone, so you're coming with me. That way, I can take care of both of you, and you won't be alone at home, so we don't have to worry about you. I struggled weakly, but couldn't break free. John, I don't want to go. John ignored me, forcibly shoving me into the back seat of his car. Lying there, I saw his GPS display Selena's address as a frequently visited location. I didn't say a word, wrapping myself tighter in the blanket. When we arrived, John rushed upstairs, leaving me alone in the car. Once again, I was left behind. John left in such a hurry, he didn't notice the car's Bluetooth was still on. I heard him panting as he rushed upstairs. The plastic bag rustled, filled with medicine. He knocked on Selena's door. Selena's eyes lit up when she saw him. Then, she glanced behind him. Where's Minnie? John suddenly realized that I was still in the car. He pursed his lips and pulled out the ointment. She didn't want to come up here, so she told me to come check on you. How can you sprain your ankle walking downstairs? You're so clumsy. For the first time, Selena didn't argue back. She remained silent, letting John apply the medicine. John's fingers paused, but he didn't say anything else. The Bluetooth connection cut out due to signal loss. My hand, which had been resting on the doorknob, retracted. After sweating so much, my mind became surprisingly clear. I informed my manager that I was willing to go overseas. This is so sudden. Didn't you say you needed some time to think it over? I shook my head, my voice firm. I've made my decision. I should have left a long time ago. I'll complete the work handover in the next few days. I won't cause you any problem. My boss sighed, clearly reluctant to see me go abroad. You're one of the most brilliant and hardworking members of my team. Not having you around is going to take some getting used to. Honestly, I didn't think brilliant was a word that should be used to describe me. I had always been like a hardworking ox, quietly toiling, waiting for John to finally notice my qualities. But all I got in return was being abandoned again and again. I got out of the car wrapped in a blanket. A kind lady helped me to the hospital. As I was getting 4 fluids, John bombarded me with calls. I didn't pick up, so he left voice messages. Why did you leave without saying a word? Selena and I are worried sick. Selena's leg injury has gotten worse because we went around looking for you. You think you can act recklessly just because you're sick? No one owes you anything, and no one is obligated to indulge you. I listened calmly, feeling not a single ripple of emotion. While paying the bills, I saw John carrying Selena out of the outpatient clinic. His head was lowered as he listened gently to something Selena was saying. Then he smiled softly, very dotingly. I took a photo and sent it to him, along with a text that said, "Looks like you don't need me. Just take good care of her." After sending it, I immediately turned off my phone. When I got home, I started packing my things. I always thought John and I had a lot of stuff, but once I actually packed, I realized that everything that belonged to me could fit into a single suitcase. In the photos of our travels together, Selena was always there. Selena's name was also written on the handicrafts John and I made. Selena even had a set of pajamas at home that was completely identical to our couple's pajamas. I pulled out a letter that was hidden under a trophy. It was a handwritten love letter I wrote for John before we started dating. He said I was cringy, but he'd kept it until now. I gently unfolded it, rereading my girlish sentiments. Seeing an extra line, I suddenly froze. The last line read, "John, will you be with me?" And the extra line read, "John, are you content with this?" I immediately recognized Selena's handwriting. It seemed I wasn't the only one who felt discontent over the past 5 years. I let go, and the yellowed envelope fell into the trash. Then, I zipped up my suitcase and left without looking back. When John returned, the house was empty. He didn't think much of it. Over the years, whenever I was mad at him, I'd run off to stay somewhere else for a while. Sometimes for 2 days, sometimes for a week. John was used to it. He even thought I might have gone to Selena's place. He sent a few texts, reminding me to take good care of Selena. I didn't reply to any of them. A week passed, and I still hadn't returned home. John took a detour to my company to look for me. He brought a bouquet of roses and waited at the entrance. He waited for half an hour. Then, he grew impatient and casually stopped one of my coworkers. My coworker stared at John with a surprised expression, looking him up and down. "Aren't you her boyfriend?"
How can you not know?
"She's been assigned overseas. She won't be back for 3 years." The bouquet of red roses in John's hand suddenly felt absurdly heavy. The coworker's words hung in the muggy afternoon air, competing with the distant hum of traffic outside the corporate glass tower. "Overseas?" John repeated, his voice cracking slightly before he pulled himself together. He forced a dry, incredulous laugh. "That's impossible. Minnie's position is in local market operations. She wouldn't just. She applied for the international transfer program 3 weeks ago." The coworker interrupted, looking at John with a mixture of pity and faint disgust. "The approval came through last Friday. She finalized her handover yesterday afternoon. Her flight was this morning at 9. John stood frozen on the sidewalk. The sun beat down on his shoulders, but a cold prickle of panic swept through his chest. "She didn't tell you?" The coworker added softly, though there was a sharp edge underneath. "That's strange. You two have been together for 5 years, haven't you?" Everyone in her department thought she was single until about 6 months ago. Without another word, the coworker turned and walked back inside, the automatic sliding doors closing with a soft whoosh, cutting off the cool, air-conditioned
Draft.
John pulled out his phone. His thumbs swiped frantically across the screen, dialing Minnie's number. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable or outside the coverage area." He dialed again. Same automated voice. Smooth, calm, and utterly final. He switched to WeChat. He typed out a message with trembling fingers. "Minnie, where are you? What kind of joke is this? Call me back right now." Beside the text, a small red exclamation mark popped up instantly. "Message failed to send. You are no longer in this contact's friend list." John's heart hammered violently against his ribs. A sudden knot formed in his stomach, tight and painful.
Blocked.
She had actually blocked him. "Nonsense," he muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white as he drove back to their shared apartment. "She's just throwing a fit. She's at her parents' house. Or maybe she's staying at a hotel."
To scare me.
He practically kicked open the front door of their apartment, expecting to see her shoes neatly lined up by the entryway, expecting to smell the faint lavender scent of the floor cleaner she used every Tuesday. The apartment was dead silent. The air felt thin, stale, and unnaturally cold. John threw the bouquet of roses onto the entryway table, where it struck a small ceramic tray, and knocked it over. He marched into the bedroom, pulling the wardrobe doors open. Half of the space was completely bare. Minnie hadn't left behind a messy trail of anger. There were no smashed picture frames, no torn letters, no angry notes pinned to the mirror. She had simply removed every single trace of her existence with surgical precision. Her winter coats, her casual sweaters, her small collection of silk scarves gone. On the nightstand, where her wooden hairbrush and lavender night cream usually sat, there was only a smooth patch of dust. John's eyes scanned the room wildly. He ran to the bathroom. Her toothbrush was
Gone.
Her floral perfume, the one he had always complained was too faint, was
Gone.
even the pink hand towel she used was gone, replaced by the solitary gray one he had bought for himself years ago. It wasn't a sudden storm. It was an evacuation. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He snatched it out instantly, expecting Minnie's name, but the screen displayed the familiar Apple emoji. Selena. John. Selena's voice drifted through the speaker, light and demanding.
My
Foot is still a bit swollen. Can you pick up those iced matcha lattes from the bakery near your place and come over? My team leader wants the revised slides by 4, and I can't concentrate. For the first time in 5 years, the sound of Selena's voice did not bring John the usual sense of comfortable familiarity. Instead, a sudden, inexplicable irritation flared in his chest. I can't, John said curtly. There was a pause on the other end. Selena sounded surprised, then slightly amused. What do you mean you can't? Are you still dealing with Minnie?
did she
Throw another tantrum because I called you last night? She left, John said, his voice hollow. Left? Left where? Back to her parents. She went abroad, John said, sitting down heavily on the edge of the stripped mattress. The bare mattress ticking felt rough through his trousers. She took an overseas assignment for 3 years. Silence stretched over the line for a few seconds. Then Selena let out a small, quiet laugh. Oh, come on, John. She's playing hard to get.
Minnie?
Go abroad alone?
She can.
Barely order food in English without stumbling. She probably just went on a solo vacation to intimidate you. Give her 3 days. When her money runs out or she gets lonely, she'll come crawling back to you like she always does. John looked at the empty closet. Would she? In the 5 years they had been together, Minnie had always been the quiet harbor. Whenever he and Selena argued over work, whenever project stress pushed him to his limits, Minnie was always there, waiting with hot tea, a warm towel, or simply a quiet room where he didn't have to compete with anyone.
She was as
Predictable as the sunrise, as permanent as the floor beneath his feet. Yeah, John swallowed hard, trying to quell the cold emptiness expanding in his chest. You're right. She's just acting out because of the karaoke night. Exactly, Selena said smoothly. Now bring the matcha latte. I really need to finish this presentation. John hung up, but he didn't move. He sat on the bare bed for a long time, staring at the empty nightstand. He reached out to touch the wooden surface. His fingers came back with a smudge of dust. He realized then that he didn't even know what flight she might have taken, what city she was flying to, or who was going to meet her at the airport. 2 weeks passed. The initial shock had given way to an uncomfortable, gnawing restlessness in the apartment. John found himself lingering at his office late into the night, delaying his return to the silent flat. Without Minnie there to turn on the lights, cook dinner, or leave small reminders on the fridge, the apartment felt less like a home and more like a cold, cavernous waiting room. He had tried contacting her family, but her brother had answered the phone with icy polite detachment. Minnie asked us not to share her foreign contact details. She said she needs to focus on her career. Please don't call again, Mr. Aldama. Even his high school group chat had begun to feel hostile. One evening, a classmate posted a photo of a high school gathering from 6 years ago. _A. Look what I found. John and Selena were already arguing over that math
contest back then.
_B. Haha, the legendary dynamic. By the way, where's Minnie these days? I tried to tag her, but her account says, user deactivated. _C. Oh, didn't you know? Minnie went to the London office. She got a huge
Promotion.
She posted a photo of the Thames on her LinkedIn yesterday. She looks amazing. John's heart gave a violent jerk. London. He immediately opened LinkedIn, a platform he rarely used, and searched for her
Name.
Her profile popped up. Her professional headshot had been updated. In the photo, Minnie was wearing a crisp navy blue blazer. Her long hair, which she usually tied back in a low, plain ponytail, fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She wasn't wearing her heavy, thick-rimmed glasses anymore. Instead, her brown eyes looked bright, sharp, and strikingly clear. She was smiling, not the cautious, accommodating smile she used to give him, but a confident, radiant smile that commanded attention. Below her photo, her new title was displayed in bold text: Senior Strategy Operations Manager, European Headquarters, London. John stared at the screen, his fingers cold. She looked like a stranger. A brilliant, elegant stranger who had no relation to the quiet girl who used to pack his lunchboxes every morning. Suddenly, a message popped up in the high school group chat. It was from Selena. Selena, London is so gloomy and wet. I give her 6 months before she begs for a transfer back. Operations over there is cutthroat. The chat went quiet for a moment. Then a female classmate who had never particularly liked Selena replied. User underscored. Why would she come back? She's living her best life. Some people don't need to pull others down to shine. Selena. Selena. What is that supposed to mean? John closed the app, unable to read any further. A heavy headache throbbed behind his eyes. He walked into the living room, intending to clear away some old papers on the coffee table. As he lifted a stack of tech magazines, he bumped into the waste bin near the desk. It tipped over, spilling dried receipts, empty tissue boxes, and crumpled papers onto the floor. John knelt down to scoop the trash back in. Among the papers, a torn yellowed envelope caught his eye. It was the love letter Minnie had written him back in senior year, the one he had casually kept tucked inside a dusty trophy on a shelf. He remembered how she had blushed when she handed it to him, her fingers trembling slightly. He picked up the smooth, yellowed paper. It had been unfolded and smoothed out. At the bottom of the letter, below Minnie's neat, slanting handwriting, John, will you be with me? There was a second line written in sharp, aggressive, dark blue ink. John, are you content with this? John's breath hitched. He recognized that handwriting instantly.
It was
Selena's. He remembered that day in senior year clearly now. Minnie had given him the letter during self-study period. Before he could read it, Selena had snatched it off his desk, laughing loudly, calling it cringy poetry, and reading bits of it aloud to the class until Minnie ran out of the classroom in tears. He had taken the letter back from Selena later that afternoon, but he had never noticed that line written at the bottom. Selena had written it. She had seen Minnie's quiet confession, mocked it, and written a subtle challenge beneath it, a challenge to John, asking him if he was really content settling for the quiet girl instead of competing with the star of the class. And Minnie had found it. She had found it right before she left. John sat on the hardwood floor, surrounded by trash, holding the torn piece of paper. For 5 years, he had believed he was a good boyfriend. He had believed that his dynamic with Selena was harmless, just two competitive high achievers who shared a deep history. He had convinced himself that Minnie was content in the background, that her quietness meant she didn't care, that her tolerance was infinite. He looked at the trash bin. He looked at the clean, bare spots in the apartment, where her things used to be. The truth hit him like a physical blow, knocking the wind straight out of his lungs. Minnie hadn't left because she was throwing a tantrum. She had left because she had finally realized that in his world, she was never a partner. She was merely an audience member forced to watch a two-person show that had lasted far too long. London in late autumn was crisp, misty, and cold. Minnie wrapped her wool coat tighter around herself as she walked out of the underground station near Canary Wharf. The tall glass skyscrapers mirrored the pale gray sky, and the chilly wind carried the faint scent of rain and roasting chestnuts from a nearby street vendor. She stopped at a small coffee stand, ordering an Americano in fluent, steady English. Double shot today, Minnie? The barista asked with a warm smile. Yes, please, Marco. Big presentation at 2, she replied, handing over her
card.
It had been 6 months. 6 months since she had closed the door on her past life in Shanghai, walked onto a plane with a single suitcase, and landed in a city where no one knew her as John's girlfriend or Selena's sidekick. The first month had been brutal. The work culture in the European headquarters was fast-paced and uncompromising. She had stayed up until 2 a.m. almost every night, dissecting market reports, refining her financial models, and adjusting to managing a cross-cultural team. There were nights when she woke up in her small rented apartment in Hampstead, her chest aching with a phantom lingering sorrow, her hands instinctively reaching for a phone that no longer held 5 years of archived chat logs. Decoupling her life from John hadn't been an instantaneous miracle. It was a slow, painful peeling away of an old skin. She had to unlearn old habits, the habit of automatically checking the clock to see if John had eaten, the habit of keeping her voice soft so as not to interrupt his calls with Selena, the habit of shrinking her own needs until she was practically invisible. But work was an unexpected sanctuary. In this company, her quiet thoroughness was not mistaken for passivity. Her director, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara, had noticed Minnie's extraordinary eye for detail during her second week. You don't shout to be heard, Minnie, Clara had told her during a quarterly
Review.
You let your data do the heavy lifting. That's rare. Stop second-guessing yourself. By the third month, Minnie had spearheaded a regional restructuring proposal. That saved the department 12% in operational costs. Her name was no longer an afterthought. It was at the top of high-priority project memos. She stepped into the high-rise office building, waving her badge at the security turnstile. Her reflection in the polished marble elevator doors caught her attention. Her posture was straight, her shoulders relaxed. The anxiety that used to knot her neck had vanished. The heel chafes on her feet from that miserable karaoke night had long healed, replaced by comfortable, elegant leather pumps that actually fit. As she entered her corner office, her assistant, an energetic young Welshman named David, handed her a tablet. Morning, Minnie. Here's the attendee roster for the Global Tech Summit in Geneva next month. The board approved your keynote slot. Thanks, David, Minnie said, scanning the list of international delegates. Her thumb paused near the middle of the document. Under the Chinese corporate delegation section, two familiar names appeared side
by side.
John Aldama, Director of Business Development. Selena Summers, Senior Product Strategy Lead. Minnie's heart gave a light, brief flutter, not of pain or yearning, but the faint, distant echo of a long-healed scar reacting to a change in the weather. She looked at the names for a second, then calmly scrolled past them, returning to her presentation slides. Make sure our briefing materials are translated into French and German by Friday, she told David calmly. We need to make an impact in Geneva. On it, David nodded, taking the tablet back. Minnie turned to look out the floor-to-ceiling window. Down below, the river Thames snaked through the city, like a dark ribbon under the pale morning light. She took a sip of her hot coffee. The bitterness was pleasant, clean, and entirely her own. Back in Shanghai, the atmosphere in John's office was far from serene. Without Minnie acting as the silent shock absorber between them, John and Selena's relationship had deteriorated into an exhausting battleground. It had started small. Without Minnie to organize John's schedule, pack his lunch, or reminded him to take his supplements, John was constantly stressed and short-tempered.
And
without Minnie around to act as the common spectator for their banter, Selena's habit of dropping into his office unannounced began to feel less like charming camaraderie and more like a boundary-crossing intrusion. One rainy Friday evening, John was preparing a high-stakes presentation for the upcoming Geneva Summit. The door to his office swung open, and Selena walked in, carrying 2 cups of
coffee.
She set one down on his desk, right on top of a printed financial chart. Move that, Selena, John said irritably, snatching the paper away before the condensation ruined the ink. I told you I'm busy tonight. Selena rolled her eyes, leaning against his desk with her arms crossed. Relax.
John.
I just came to talk about our joint deck for Geneva. You omitted 3 of my slides on the domestic user growth metrics. Because those metrics are inflated, John said coldly, staring at his monitor. The European board will see right through them. I replaced them with conservative projections. You did what? Selena's voice sharpened. That was my team's core contribution. You can't just edit my work without asking me. I can, because I'm leading the delegation, John snapped, finally looking up. You always do this, Selena. You prioritize making yourself look brilliant over actual accuracy. I'm sick of covering for your sloppy risk assessments. Selena's face flushed red. Sloppy? I was the top strategist in our division. 3 quarters in a row. You were more than happy to use my ideas when we were competing in college. We aren't in college anymore. John slammed his palm onto the desk, his voice echoing in the empty office. And I'm not your competitive rival who owes you endless patience. We're colleagues. Start acting like one. Selena stared at him, her lips trembling with outrage. You've changed, John. Ever since Minnie left, you've been unbearable. You blame me for her leaving, don't you? John went completely still. She left because she realized you were taking her for granted. Selena shouted, her control slipping. You used her. You kept her around because she was convenient, because she made you feel like a king while you played your intellectual games with me. Don't pin your guilt on me. Get out, John said, his voice dangerously low. Gladly, Selena sneered. She grabbed her coffee cup, spattering a few dark drops on his white desk, and stormed out, slamming the glass door behind her. The silence that followed was suffocating. John sank back into his leather chair, rubbing his aching temples. Selena's words echoed in his ears like a cruel verdict. You kept her around because she was convenient. He looked at the corner of his desk. For years, there had been a small, handmade leather coaster sitting there, a gift Minnie had crafted for him during their second anniversary. He had accidentally spilled ink on it months ago and thrown it away without a second thought. He pulled up his personal email. He opened his sent folder, scrolling back 6 months. He had sent Minnie over 40 emails. Long, rambling emails pleading with her to talk to him, apologizing for his neglect, promising that things would be different, promising that he would set strict boundaries with Selena, promising that he would give her the wedding she had once quietly mentioned. Every single email had met with the same automated response from her corporate server. Thank you for your message. Minnie Jost has relocated to the UK office. For local business inquiries, please contact. She hadn't even read them. She had redirected his personal address straight to her spam folder. John pulled out a small velvet box from his desk drawer. Inside rested a diamond ring he had bought 3 months ago, a desperate, belated attempt to fix what he had shattered. He stared at the sparkling stone under the harsh fluorescent lights of his office. He had thought that love was about excitement, about brilliant sparks, about constant intellectual friction. He had spent 5 years chasing the bright, noisy light of a candle, completely ignoring the warm, steady sun that had been shining on him all along. Now, the sun had set, and he was left in total, freezing darkness. The Palexpo Convention Center in Geneva was buzzing with activity. Thousands of tech executives, industry analysts, and journalists from around the globe milled through the grand exhibition halls under bright LED displays. John walked through the central concourse, adjusting his necktie. He looked
Exhausted.
dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his suit hung slightly loose on his frame. He had lost weight over the past few months. Beside him, Selena walked in rigid silence. Their relationship had collapsed into a icy, strictly professional Cold War. They barely spoke outside of formal meetings. The keynote on AI-driven supply chain starts in 5 minutes in Auditorium A. Selena said, her tone flat, without looking at him. We should take our seats. Right, John murmured. They walked into the massive auditorium, which held over 1,000 people. The lights were dimmed, and the large screens on either side of the main stage displayed the presenter's name and title. Keynote speaker, Minnie Jost, Senior Director of Global Strategy, TechCorp International. John's heart violently slammed against his chest. He froze in the aisle, his breath catching in his throat. Selena stopped beside him, her gaze locking onto the giant screens.
Her jaw
Tightened, her eyes widening in disbelief. Senior Director? She whispered, her voice laced with sharp envy. She got promoted again. Before John could speak, the auditorium lights dimmed further, and a spotlight focused on the left side of the stage. Minnie walked out to the podium. A collective hush fell over the audience. She wore a tailored ivory-white pantsuit that accentuated her tall, graceful
posture.
Her dark hair was styled in an elegant, modern updo, exposing the sharp line of her jawline and her long neck. She carried no notes, only a small presenter remote in her hand. When she spoke, her voice filled the massive auditorium through the sound system, clear, composed, articulate, and completely commanding. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. She began in flawless, elegant English, her tone warm yet utterly authoritative. Today, we are not here to talk about abstract potential. We are here to talk about structural execution. John stood in the darkened aisle, completely mesmerized. He couldn't take his eyes off her. This wasn't the Minnie who sat quietly in the back seat of his car wrapped in an old blanket while she shivered with a fever. This wasn't the Minnie who let Selena cut her off during dinner conversations. This was a woman at the absolute peak of her power, brilliant, charismatic, stunning, and completely out of reach. Beside him, Selena stood stiff as a board, her fingers digging so hard into her designer handbag that the leather creaked. For 5 years, Selena had defined herself by her superiority over Minnie. She had comforted herself with the belief that no matter how hard Minnie tried, Minnie would always be the bland background character in her and John's story. Now, standing in the dark, watching Minnie address an international audience of industry leaders who listened to her every word with rapt attention, Selena's fragile pride disintegrated into dust. When Minnie finished her 40-minute presentation, the auditorium erupted into thunderous applause. Several prominent venture capitalists stood up to applaud. Minnie smiled warmly, bowed her head gracefully, and walked off the stage. John didn't wait. Driven by an overwhelming, desperate impulse, He pushed past the attending delegates and sprinted toward the backstage exit hallway. John, Selena called out behind him, her voice filled with panic and anger. John, stop. He ignored her completely. The backstage corridor was quiet, lined with dark velvet curtains and security.
Personnel.
Minnie was standing near a refreshment table, sipping a glass of water while chatting with the senior European VP. She was laughing softly at something he said, her face glowing under the soft corridor lights. Minnie! The sudden, ragged cry shattered the calm atmosphere. Minnie paused, turning her head toward the sound. John broke past a security guard who tried to stop him, rushing down the hallway, until he stood 10 feet away from her. He was panting heavily, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and filled with an agonizing mixture of hope and terror. Minnie, please, John gasped, taking a step closer. The European VP looked confused, looking between John and Minnie. Is everything all right, Minnie? Do you know this gentleman? Minnie's expression didn't change. There was no shock, no anger, no panic, and most devastatingly of all, no love. Her brown eyes were as clear and still as a deep mountain lake. It's all right, Arthur, Minnie said softly to her colleague in smooth French. He is an old acquaintance from Shanghai. Give us 2 minutes. Arthur nodded, giving John a wary glance before walking down the hall. John took another step forward, his voice trembling violently. Minnie,
I
found you. I finally found you. Minnie set her glass of water down on the table with a soft, precise clink.
She
smoothed the front of her white suit jacket and looked at him. Hello, John, she said evenly.
Her voice was calm.
So calm it sounded like a polite greeting to a distant business partner. John felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if a hand were squeezing his heart. Minnie, I'm so sorry. I know I was a fool. I know I neglected you. I know I let Selena cross boundaries. I know I broke your heart. I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the small velvet box, opening it with shaking hands to reveal the diamond ring. Please, Minnie, he begged, his voice breaking, tears finally welling in his
eyes.
Come back to me. I've broken off all personal contact with Selena.
I've
applied for a transfer to the European division. We can start over. I'll make it up to you for the rest of my life.
Just give me one more chance.
Behind John, Selena arrived at the entrance of the corridor. She saw John on his knees, literally bowing his head in desperation before Minnie, holding out a diamond ring. Selena froze, her face draining of all color. The humiliation hit her like a physical blow. The man she had spent years keeping on her leash, the man she thought would always revolve around her orbit, was begging on his knees for the woman she had spent 5 years looking down upon. Minnie looked down at the glittering diamond in the box. Then, she looked up at John's desperate, tear-streaked face. Slowly, gently, she shook her head. John, she said softly, her voice carrying a deep, quiet pity. Put the ring away.
Why?
John sobbed, taking a step closer, holding the box out like a lifeline. Is it because you hate me? You can hit me, you can yell at me, just don't look at me like this. I don't hate you, Minnie said truthfully. And that was the absolute, horrific truth. She felt no hatred for him. She felt no lingering resentment for the rainy nights she had waited for him, for the cold water bottles he had handed her, unopened, or for the endless times he had left her behind for Selena. Those painful memories had lost their sharp edges. They had turned into gray, harmless cinders of a fire that had long burned out. 5 years ago, Minnie spoke slowly, her voice soft and crystal clear. I thought my world revolved around you. I thought if I waited long enough, if I was understanding enough, if I endured enough silence, you would eventually turn around and see me. She looked at him, her eyes bright and free. But I was wrong. I was waiting for someone who only saw me when he needed a resting place. I didn't leave because of Selena, John. I left because I finally realized that I deserved to be someone's first choice, not an afterthought, not a backdrop, and certainly not a habit. John's breath hitched. You are my first choice now. Minnie, I swear. It's too late, John, Minnie interrupted gently. The girl who loved you, the girl who waited 28 songs for her turn at karaoke, died in the back seat of your car 6 months ago. She reached out and gently closed the lid of the velvet ring box in his hand, pushing his hand back toward his chest. I have a panel discussion to attend, Minnie said, stepping past him. She didn't run. She didn't look back. Her heels clicked softly against the polished floor as she walked down the sunlit corridor toward the main hall, her shadows stretching long and bright. Ahead of her, John stood frozen in the middle of the hallway. He slowly turned his head, watching her figure disappear into the bright light of the grand exhibition hall, where hundreds of people gathered to applaud her.
Name.
Behind him, Selena stood in the shadows of the corridor, silent, defeated, and entirely forgotten. 1 year later, London, early summer. The gardens of Regent's Park were in full bloom. Pink roses, white hydrangeas, and lush green lawns stretched under a bright, clear blue sky. Minnie sat on a bench under the shade of an oak tree, holding an iPad in her lap, sketching out the initial framework for her team's new charitable initiative. A gentle breeze blew through the leaves, bringing the sweet scent of summer. Flowers. Mind if I sit here? A warm, clear voice asked. Minnie looked up. A man in his early 30s stood beside the bench, wearing a navy linen shirt and gray trousers. He held 2 artisanal ice creams, one salted caramel, one hazelnut. His name was Julian, a human rights lawyer she had met 6 months ago through an international development project. He had clear, intelligent gray eyes, a quiet sense of humor, and a heart that was completely, unabashedly open. Only if you give me the salted caramel, Minnie smiled, sliding over to make room for him. Negotiating as always, Julian chuckled, sitting down and handing her the cup. He didn't hand her an unopened bottle and expect her to struggle.
He had already
Opened the napkin, placed the spoon neatly inside, and handed it to her with effortless care. Minnie took a bite of the ice cream, the sweet and salty flavors melting on her
tongue.
How was your meeting with the foundation? Julian asked softly, looking at her with genuine interest and warmth. It went brilliantly, Minnie said, her eyes sparkling. They agreed to fund the full 3-year educational grant for the Overseas Youth Initiative. I never doubted you for a second, Julian said quietly. He reached out, his long fingers gently tucking a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear, his thumb brushing against her cheek with profound tenderness. You're extraordinary, Minnie. Minnie looked into his eyes. There was no competition here, no subtle power dynamics, no third person lingering in the shadows, no quiet comparisons. She was seen. She was cherished. She was loved, not for her tolerance or her convenience, but simply for who she was. Her phone vibrated on the bench beside her. She picked it up. It was an industry news notification from a Shanghai business publication. Aldama Summers tech consultancy files for bankruptcy following strategic misalignment and core executive departure. Minnie scanned the headline briefly. The article noted that after a disaster series of internal conflicts, project failures, and public fallouts, John and Selena's co-founded venture had
collapsed.
John had resigned from his corporate post and moved back to his hometown, while Selena had relocated to a smaller regional branch, her reputation severely tarnished. Minnie paused for a fraction of a second. Then, she quietly swiped the notification away. She didn't feel joy at their failure, nor did she feel pity. Their lives were simply distant noise from a channel she had long stopped watching. Everything all right? Julian asked gently, noticing her brief pause. Minnie turned to him, the bright summer sunlight casting a warm, golden glow over her features. She took his hand, feeling the warm, strong grip of his fingers entwining with hers. Everything is perfect, Minnie said softly. She locked her phone screen, turning it face down on the bench, and let it fade into the background where it belonged. Ahead of them, the path through the rose garden stretched wide, open, and filled with light. And for the first time in her life, Minnie walked forward, knowing that her turn had finally come.